If you dig the twisted, admire the outlandish, and are enamored by the unusual, you're in the right place. True crime, the supernatural, the unexplained, now you're speaking our language. If you agree, join us as we dive into the darker side. You know, because it's more fun over here. Welcome to Total Conundrum.
Warning, some listeners may find the following content disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Ha 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 ha.
Hey there, Cryptid Chasers. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Total Conundrum. I'm Traci, and this is my partner in crime, Jeremy.
That's right, folks. Today we've got a real treat for you. We're joined by none other than Nash Hoover, the cryptid hunter extraordinaire from Chasing Legends.
Now, before we dive into the mysterious world of cryptids, we've got some important business to attend to, right, Jeremy?
Absolutely, folks. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube and ring that notification bell so you never miss a hair-raising adventure. And for our audio-only friends, give us a howl of approval with a stellar rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform.
You know, chasing cryptids is a lot like chasing those elusive YouTube algorithm boosts. It's all about the thrill of the hunt.
It's all about the bass.
No trouble.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of supporting your fellow hunters, haunters, and true crime enthusiasts, we want to give a shout out to our podcast pals over at Gruesome and Unnatural and a Dead Letter promo. They've got some bone-chilling trailers that will send shivers down your spine. We'll play their trailers during this episode. It's like a podcasting monster mash.
Whoa, a podcast monster mash? Sounds like a cryptid party I want to attend.
Woot, woot, yeah! Count me in. But first, let's uncover some cryptid secrets and maybe even share a few laughs along the way.
So, Cryptid Chasers, grab your binoculars, adjust your tinfoil hats, and get ready for a wild ride. Nash Hoover is in the house.
Oh, yeah!
And Chasing Legends is about to turn up the mystery meter.
Turn up the heat.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. We'll be back after these messages.
Hey everyone, I'm Shelly,
And I'm Eric.
and we're the hosts of Gruesome and Unnatural, a true crime podcast about murder, cold cases, missing people, and just unnatural.
Join us every Monday where Shelly tells me gruesome stories that absolutely with me.
Yeah, subscribe and listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Good, Tracy. How are you?
I'm good. And as you can see, we have a guest today. We have Nash from Chasing Legends. Hey, Nash, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Chasing Legends and what you do, and then shout out where we can find you?
Sure. So, Chasing Legends is my web series. It follows myself and my small team of filmmakers and fellow researchers, and we travel around the country right now. Eventually, we'll be going global with it, but travel around the country and investigate various cryptid legends. And each episode is a different topic, and we dive really deep into it and kind of explore every possible angle of it, and then we put ourselves in the shoes of the people that have seen it and try to kind of see if we can find our own evidence. We've had some decent success with it. Haven't found anything super definitive, but we've definitely had some pretty cool experiences doing it, and it's been a ton of fun. And yeah, we just throw it on YouTube for free and just enjoy doing it.
Very cool.
So you haven't found Bigfoot yet? Come on.
Believe it or not, we have not.
Oh.
Well, we're
Shocking.
just going to cover, we'll cover a few little housekeeping items. So as you guys can see, hopefully see, we're trying video again. We've been having some technical difficulties with cameras and syncing and all of that stuff. So we finally got Podcastle to work. So we're trying that. So hopefully we'll have video on YouTube this week. Hopefully, knock on wood. And Nash, you're on Instagram and you're on YouTube. And are you on any other socials?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page as well.
Okay. Very cool. So everyone go check out especially the YouTube, because you can see some pretty cool videos out there. Jeremy and I have been watching them and they're a lot of fun. You got a pretty I think some of the team has changed a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, we have,
Or will be changing a little.
There's only one. Well, I should say there's, in the stuff we're about to do, there will be 2 original cast members that have been in it since the very beginning. The stuff that we have out now, it kind of changes, but there's usually some consistency between my cousin Michaela and my friend JC. And he's the one that actually is coming back to it. He was not in the most recent 4 episodes that we put out, but Michaela was. But the team kind of changes, but we've had a pretty consistent, I say consistent, but the team that we assembled kind of in the midst of our 3-year hiatus is the same team that we're moving forward with. And most of them have been with it for at least the last few years.
Well, it seems like you guys have a lot of fun working together. You've got, there was one video in particular. Hey, one of the team members was shooting somebody off in a distance, and they're like, we have a rare sighting of, so I was, playing a little fun with it too. So that
Eli.
was really fun to see. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've really lucked out with some of the people we've gotten to work with. I mean, unfortunately, Alex Pedikov and Eli Watson are no longer with the series. They work with Small Town Monsters, so they can't legally do more episodes with us. But yeah, I mean, the crew that we have, I hand select everybody. They're not, just random people that I hire. They're all people that I know or meet through people that I either have worked with or are currently working with. So yeah, we're all like super tight. We're true friends, and that really shines through. And that was something when I created the show, I wanted to make sure was there. I didn't want it to just seem like a ragtag, like hired bunch of people that have no chemistry whatsoever. Like I wanted there to be that true like camaraderie between everybody, because it makes the stuff more natural and the funny bits more natural and the tense bits more natural, and we really work well together.
That is very true. You've got to have that chemistry. And I can definitely, in just the stuff that we watched, you can see that you guys definitely all have that close connection. And in doing what you're doing, it's not always a safe thing either.
No, it definitely is not.
No. So you've got to be out there watching each other's back, and so you've got to trust in who you're working with.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever go to Louisiana and walk around in a swamp at night.
It was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun. I wish that we could have gone into a more like wild area for our night investigation, but in the time frame we had to shoot that, and just our lack of like good insurance for a show, we just couldn't make it happen. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the most tense night investigation we've ever done up to now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen a little fear on your face. In that video.
It was insane. Yeah, I mean, because it had just rained. And for context, we're talking about the Ruguru episode.
Yep.
It rained the day before, like, and I'm talking like poured. Like I think we had a whole day locked out to shoot. I think we filmed the daytime swamp portion, and then we were supposed to go do the boat ride with Billy Gaston, and then it just downpoured. So we pretty much had, I think we shot up to like maybe 11 a.m. noon, and then had to stop the whole rest of the day because it was just pouring rain. And luckily we had like a day with a little bit more availability the following day, so we were able to kind of move the boat tour to like our investigation day. So it had just rained the day before. So we had all these, spiders the size of my hand making webs all at head height. So we're trying to dodge those in the dark. And then, it's like this 3-foot wide, like wooden walkway that just goes through the swamps with no railing on the sides. And it was just super slick. It was, and then numerous times I would look down and I could see like gators swimming underneath the wood plank, which like I would kind of look down. Most of the time I didn't even like mention it because I knew like most of my guys were already like super on edge. So I would just kind of see them and I just would like kind of look back to make sure they didn't see it and then keep walking. When we got to the one point where we just shined our lights out and we could just see like 3 or 4 of them just sitting there looking at us. We're like, this is so dumb. Like we don't get paid anything for this, and we're just out in the
Yeah, I could probably do like those wooden planks, but then you guys were walking on like a 2x12 or something, crossing something at some point.
Yeah, it was hairy. And that was like, we've had some like tense situations doing this show, but that was like the one episode where I was like, no one's going to come back and do this show ever again. Like I've lost my entire team to this, and I haven't. Like everyone, like I was shocked. Like everyone stuck with it. Like, my cousin Michaela was probably the most on edge, and I always laugh because, I always show her the clips because when I was editing the episode, I had to cut her audio for most of it because you can just see her just like stress puffing on her vape. And it's hilarious. Like you just hear these deep suck-ins and blowouts. So she was just so on edge. But yeah, I was shocked because we all met back up at the end of it. And I forgot that I'd left a trail camera like pretty deep back in. So I was like, I'm going to go back and get this camera. Like, I don't care. You guys can all stay here. Like, I'll go in alone. I don't care. So I started walking back, and then I turn around because I could hear footsteps running up behind me. And it was my director of photography, Sammy, who was the last person I expected to go in alone with me back into this environment, especially after the alligator incident that we had. But yeah, I mean, that was that was one where I really had to like kind of ask everybody, like, is everyone fine? Like we could have died. It was that close.
We're still here, but is everybody okay?
Yeah. And but yeah, I was shocked, that I'm shocked and humbled that everyone stuck with it and is willing to go back and allow me to put them in those situations again. But yeah, I mean that, and I remember when we had that alligator incident in the episode, it sucks that you can't really see much of it and you can't really hear much of it. But as soon as they started like splashing and just like getting close, I stood my ground and everybody just left me. Like you see everyone take off running and the camera pans back and I'm just like calmly walking back to everybody like, what the hell, guys? Like, thanks. But luckily nothing happened there, and we all walked out of there with all of our limbs intact.
That's crazy. The only 2 experiences I've ever had with alligators was one, we went to Louisiana just for a day trip, and because our youngest, Maddie, had never been to the ocean. So we were in Tennessee visiting my in-laws, and we went from Tennessee down to Orange Beach, Alabama, brought her to the Gulf for the day. And then from there, we got a hotel in Mississippi, I believe.
Yep.
And then we decided we were going to do a day in NOLA or like in New Orleans. And then we did a swamp tour in the morning, spent the evening in New Orleans, did a ghost like mystery tour type thing. So it was just a quick little stint, but we went out on the swamp tour. So, we were taking the boats over the cypress trees and, that was really fun. I'd love to do that again. But then when we were in Florida, I don't remember, we went in April, I think. We were staying at this resort, and right outside of the back of our townhouse that we were staying in, they had a pond. And every morning we'd sit outside. I'm like, there's gators in that pond. I just know it. And Jeremy and Dylan kept telling me, no, the whole place is fenced. There's no gators.
It's fine.
It's fine. And the next day I wake up and Jeremy's down at the pond and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, there's a gator in it. I'm like, I told you, and get away from the pond.
Yeah,
And then
my wife and I honeymooned in New Orleans last year, and so that was the first time I'd been back down there since we shot that episode in 2020. So it was kind of fun to kind of get back out into the swamps again and see these gators. And then obviously I was in Florida just this last week and went into the Mayaca swamp west of or east of Sarasota, which is where like the famous Mayaca skunk ape photo was taken. And there was like I'd never seen so many like alligators in one spot just on the banks, and then this is like true wild swamp, like you're just on a dirt path, like, and they're right there. Like the park ranger we ran into, like we had our 2-year-old just running around and they're like, do not let him go next to the water. I'm like, well, duh, like he's perfect, like perfect alligator food. But I it's weird because like I never thought I would love that environment, but I do. It's just there's so much biodiversity in those swamps, and it's crazy. But yeah, I've tempted fate a few times with gators since that ordeal in that episode, and I'm still okay as of now.
I was shocked. We went on an ecological tour, kind of like a swamp tour type thing that you would do in New Orleans, but in Florida. And we, were able to see like manatees off in the distance and stuff. And the captain of the boat that we went out on, he was just sharing all these stories and stuff. And then I told him about, the gators in the pond by our rental or whatever. And I was like, can they climb fences? He's like, oh yeah, they scale chain link fences like it's nobody's business. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no place safe.
Yeah, alligators are wild. And then, with Florida, you've got a billion other things to worry about.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Iguana, snakes.
Yeah, and then the handful of Nile crocodiles that they found in the Everglades since the 90s.
Right. What is the big difference between? I know you mentioned the skunk ape. What is the difference between the skunk ape and Bigfoot?
So when it comes to Bigfoot, I know I'm not alone in this. There's regional variants, obviously. Bigfoot's not a singular, creature as I feel like it's sometimes led to believe it is. Biologically, from a biological standpoint, if this is a real animal, there's got to be a population of them. They can't just be a singular.
Right.
Especially for how far back sightings go. And, this is a global phenomena. So skunk ape is essentially, it's just Florida's version of Bigfoot. It's just their species, if you will. It's, it's adapted to living in the wet, swampy environments. Yeah. But, you've got like the Honey Island swamp monster in Louisiana too. And there's other like swamp apes that are kind of described in that kind of whole southern region. So it's definitely, the skunk ape definitely isn't alone in that sense of, being a swamp dwelling Bigfoot. But the skunk ape definitely does have a lot more like popularity in terms of it's definitely like, if you kind of look at like, a chart of different Bigfoot variants, it's definitely going to be towards the top. But yeah, you've got, I can't even name all of the different regional variants of Sasquatch.
There's a lot.
Yowie,
Yowie, Yeti, Yeren, it's the
Tons of
Almasi,
them.
and it's.
So what is your thoughts on there's people that talk about like Bigfoot being like interdimensional and how they escape so fast as they're going through portals and stuff. Yeah.
No.
So you got the paranormal part of it in that aspect, and then you've got, the cryptids and the paranormal sometimes cross. They cross
There's
paths with
definitely
their
the cases
beliefs
where
and
they
stuff. So,
there's definitely cases where they do bridge. I definitely take a more like biologist approach to cryptozoology. So I'm like, I look at them as like
mhm.
flesh and blood. So if it's too outlandish, I'm just like, I'm not even going to touch it. I mean, we have looked at, we have looked at a few with the show, and obviously like the Pukwudgie is one where that's definitely more on like the folklore side. Rougarou is another one that's more than likely just Cajun folklore. Just because there's not really anything like in Louisiana that could be like mistaken as a large canine. But yeah, I'm definitely what is called in the community as an aper. So I definitely see them as an animal, not a, something from another dimension that can just kind of vanish, as you were
Right.
saying. We run into that a lot. It's for whatever reason, that has become a lot more of a popular stance. But to each their own. We're talking about a subject that has no definitive one way or another. So, everyone's entitled to their own, but we just run into a lot of it where it's people are definitively one side or the other. And if you even like try to argue either side, you just are getting attacked. And it's unfortunate because it's tough to like move forward as a community when you've got so many like gatekeepers that are just like, nope, this is how it is. This is what these things are. It's like, nah, dude. Like,
Yeah, we just did it hasn't aired yet, but we did a um, episode on flat Earth, and then Jeremy made up his own flat Earth.
It's a good
Nice.
one.
So kind of that aspect, I laughed so hard when he was researching that, listening to the scientists go against the flat earthers, because sounded to me like two third graders arguing back and forth. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Where's your proof? Well, where's your proof? Yeah,
That's becoming
which was just kind of crazy.
cryptozoology, unfortunately. There's a
Right.
good group of us that are like, we meet halfway with each other. Like there's a lot of good researchers that I've, aligned myself with that, we actually will come to each other for like, oh, well, you can, you speak, you've got more info on this subject, you've got more info on that subject, sort of thing. So that, there is definitely that sharing of knowledge between a good group of us that have a lot of respect for each other because we have the same kind of mindset towards it where, we're not dipping our toe into the, the woo side of it. And we are willing to approach the topics objectively and discuss rather than state. And it's great. But yeah, there's definitely, I've left quite a few like cryptid Facebook groups recently because it's just like
Over the
nothing
top.
but blurry photos of bushes with, the red circles and look at this, it was looking right at me. Like, dude, there's nothing there. Like if you have to zoom in and draw something, there's nothing there. You're just trying
Right.
to like, yeah. Like
Well,
give me
and the
something
human eye is trained to make faces,
Mhm.
or the brain or the eye, whatever. We are trained, or is we try to find faces in everything that we see. And so, yeah, you can, yeah, if you look hard enough, you'll probably generate a face out of it. But if you have to look that hard, how'd you see it in the first place?
Well, that's just it. With some of these photos, it's like, oh, I was 10 feet from this thing. It's like, no, you weren't. It's like, yes, I was. I'm like, you wouldn't be standing in front of me right now telling me this if you were 10 feet from this thing.
Right.
Like, no way.
Well, I suppose we can start getting into some of our questions. We
So,
kind
how do you guys choose which cryptid you're gonna go after, or for your adventure?
I started researching this subject when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And then it was always just kind of a passion of mine growing up. And then once I kind of, once I was out of school and had some adult money, I was like, I'm going to, try and see if I can, actually do some boots on the ground investigations with this. And that kind of led to in 2013, led to the creation of Chasing Legends. So when we were kind of in that early phase, I compiled a list that is continually growing. I think we're at like 75 different cases.
Wow.
And that's not including ones that we've done episodes on. And those are all like extensively researched and are ones that I think are worth looking into. Definitely with cryptozoology, there's like hundreds more that I think are just, not worth my time. Not that they're bad like legends by any means, but we kind of have like a set of rules that, it's like it has to have the potential to exist in the real world and not just folklore.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely have like a laundry list of kind of factors that go into something that we consider worthy of us funding an entire production around and expedition around looking into. And
so it's kind of a group effort then. You all kind of make the decision of what track next.
It's mostly mine.
Okay.
I'm out of my whole team, I mean, everyone's into this to a degree. But I'm definitely the one that's got like the most knowledge on the subject. So everyone has pretty much gotten to the point where whatever I definitely will throw it out there. Like I'll send out like, a list of like 3 or 4, like, hey, which one of these do you guys think we should, go after, kind of a thing. But most of the time it's just, if I think it's worth our time, then it's worth our time.
Okay.
Which is nice. Everyone kind of trusts my judgment, and I haven't led them. I mean, I've obviously led them into gator-infested swamps, but I haven't led them wrong yet. But yeah, there's definitely. I mean, there's a good level of trust throughout the team, but yeah, everyone definitely is more than happy to kind of like, what do you want to do? And we just kind of look at the list and
just
like,
go for it.
Yeah. Like, well, we can, this is close to this, so we could do 2 back-to-back sort of a thing, and like,
There you
it's
go.
going to cost us, however many thousands of dollars to fly to Central Africa, so probably shouldn't do that yet. And
Yeah, it'd be nice to have somebody else foot that bill.
yeah, I say that all the time. If we had all the money in the world, we'd probably be on the road 300 days a year doing this.
Yeah, it would be fun, definitely. Well, can you share one of your most fascinating or challenging cryptid investigations that you've conducted?
We've talked about it already.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it definitely Rougarou in Louisiana was probably the most
I can see that.
The Champ investigation was another one where like a few of us looked at each other and were like, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done. Because we were in the middle of Lake Champlain, which, mind you, is 420-ish feet deep, that they're aware of. And we were out there in the middle of the night in kayaks looking for a lake monster.
I saw that. That was crazy.
Because we had boats lined up, and then there was some issues, and we were there doing COVID, so none of the marinas were open, so we couldn't rent anything. Luckily, we found it was a couple that we actually interviewed in the episode, and then they was the couple that had like the most recent sighting that we interviewed, and they were like we just got we just were chatting with them, and they were really cool, and they were like, yeah, we've got, we know somebody that has 2 pontoons that they could take you out. Well, then there was issues, it was like one of the motors didn't work. And then like one of the trailers, the wheel bearings was all messed up, so they couldn't move it. So we're like, all right, screw it. And the guy, luckily, the guy was nice enough. He's like, you guys can come over to my house. I've got 3 kayaks. I'm like, it's better than nothing. Like at this point, sure. At least we're out on the water. So it was it was me, Alex Pedikov, and then my sound guy Jack were the first three that went out. So my sound guy Jack is in this kayak with our full, like we call the pregnancy pack of our sound equipment that he is wirelessly wired to Alex and I. And then he's also trying to film himself and us. And then Alex and I both also have cameras, and we're filming each other and ourselves, trying not to lean too far either way because we would tip ourselves. And Alex, I'm pretty sure it was in an open kayak, so he had nothing around him. Like he was just basically sitting on top of, it was essentially like a wake, or not a wakeboard, like a paddleboard, but it had kind of a seat in it. So it was it was a kayak, but it was totally open, so he couldn't move at all. And he's trying to like turn himself to film things. And there was, I think one point Alex went back to shore, and it was just Jack and I, and we like locked arms, so we were just together. And it was probably one of the coolest moments we've ever experienced, where we just kind of like laid back, turned our lights off, and it was just like so dark because we were so far away from anything that the stars were just like so bright, and we're just in the middle of this like glass lake. And I keep looking at my GPS. I'm like, well, we're slowly drifting into the middle of the lake. So at some point we're going to have to like, start paddling back. But yeah, I mean, it was, I vaguely remember Jack and I looking at each other like, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done. Like at any moment, one of us could fall in or drop a camera and we're done. Like it's, so that was probably like one of the more challenging in terms of just like actually doing the investigation. But yeah, Louisiana was probably like the as of right now, the craziest environment we've ever worked in.
All right. Do you have the next one, Jeremy?
What's the most surprising discovery you've made during your investigations? Do you find any tracks? Curious.
We've not found any. Well, so this is we shot an episode in 2019 that never actually like released because it was incredibly rushed, and we didn't have time to film a lot of like things to tie it together, so we just never put it out. And of course it was an episode where we found a lot of good evidence in our investigation. So yeah, we were and I'll kind of hint at, so this is a subject that we're going to actually film a proper episode on this year, but it's looking into dog band sightings in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Oh, like the Briar Road type stuff. And
I'm not even gonna like go there on this trip because we don't have time for me to get into Briar Road. The rant is too long, but so it's outside of Bray Road. There is a lot of area in like Kettle Moraine, both units of the Kettle Moraine State Forest that have these dogman sightings and just whatever. So so one of our upcoming episodes this year is going to be doing that properly. And that'll be a cool episode because we have some pretty cool plans for that one. But anyway, so 2019, we went out and attempted to film out there, and we hadn't even started our investigation yet. We found a place to park and to hike into this wooded area, and cameras were rolling, but we weren't even really our plan was to hike as far in as we could before it got dark, set up a base camp, and that would kind of be our central investigation hub. And we were maybe 150, 200 yards from the start of our walk into the forest. And my cousin Michaela happened to look down, and she's like, guys, and we all kind of turned and look, and there were huge canine footprints. So we're like, wow. All right, well that kind of goes along with what we're looking for. And there was a ton of them, a ton of them, and they were the size of the palm of my hand, if not bigger. We ended up casting it. I have it. It's behind me in that light shelf thing you can see behind me. It's on that shelf, and this is a definitive canine print. So it's I had it looked at. It's from a gray wolf. which is kind of lends to my theory on dogman sightings in Wisconsin, is that people are just misidentifying gray wolves, because gray wolves were within the last like 20, 30 years reintroduced into Wisconsin. So, if you've never seen a gray wolf and you've heard these stories, your brain's just going to either make it bigger or, kind of blur some lines, and you've now seen a dogman. So that was pretty interesting. And, so yeah, I mean, that was probably like the first and only like real physical evidence that we've ever like obtained. And unfortunately it was an episode that nobody ever saw. But yeah, that was cool, because it, like I said, it led to, it was in line with what was being reported of large canine creatures. Not saying we found the tracks of Dogman, but we definitely found some very large canine tracks.
Right. That's and either would be scary when you're out in the middle of nowhere.
And then we heard howling as we got deeper into the.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Like wolf howling, or just? Wow.
It was either wolves or coyotes, but there was numerous animals that we heard and recorded. Because like we were on like it was a pathway going into this woods, and we were following a set of these tracks, through down this path. We're like, well, it's just obviously go where this is, and
right.
Yeah, and then and then not that it was probably maybe 20, 30 minutes in from where we found the first tracks that we heard the howling.
Wow. So what are some of the essential tools or equipment that you use when you're investigating cryptids in the field?
Eyes and ears is what we kind of rely on the most. I have a FLIR thermal imager that I have on me at all times. It's both as an investigation tool and as a safety tool. And my sound guy always has a boom mic on. So he's always listening not only to us, but he's listening to, everything around us, and alerts us to anything that he hears that's not us. But yeah, mostly I just, I tell my guys, like, be on alert, head on a swivel, like, eyes, ears, look, listen. We periodically will stop and just kind of sit with all of our lights off in the dark and just kind of let things, come back to life in the wood, wherever we are. And we've gotten some decent.
We'll be back after these messages.
In a world where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, prepare to journey beyond the veil of reality to uncover secrets that defy explanation. Welcome to a Dead Letter Podcast, where we delve into the mysterious and unexplained phenomena that have fascinated humans for centuries. In each episode, we will explore some of the most intriguing and spine-tingling aspects of the paranormal world. But beware, for the line between reality and the supernatural is thinner than you think. Will you dare to listen?
I guess things happen in those instances. In the case of when we were in Arizona investigating the Mogollon Monster, which is Arizona's Bigfoot, there was definitely, when we stopped and no one was moving, and we could definitely hear like twigs snapping and something, moving. It sounded like there was like more than one, because we were hearing it on kind of all sides of us. So that was kind of interesting, but yeah, we don't take too much with us. We rely a lot on the thermal. And then I have a lot of safety equipment that I carry with me. That's, a satellite communicator and other things that I've acquired after the Louisiana incident, just for peace of mind. And, but then we have a full evidence kit that I've assembled that's, got casting powder and photo scale, like crime scene photo scale rulers and evidence bags and tweezers and all the fun stuff.
Very cool.
All right. Have you ever had a particularly eerie or unexplained experience during investigation, which you probably
Yeah, that's
kind
probably
of went
more.
into.
Yeah, probably more of the Louisiana one again.
Louisiana, and then Mogollon Monster, Mogollon Rim, because we ended up splitting to two teams because a lot of the folklore and the stories around Mogollon Monster is that it seems to be attracted to like camps, and that's where it seems to kind of attack campsites. So we had a team that just sat at camp all night, and they had stuff happening, and then there was the ground team, that I led that was deeper in. And we had stuff happening, and it almost seemed like the sounds were like almost drawing us away from camp, because I'd periodically look at my GPS and like, okay, we're going, because we'd hear the sounds and it would be kind of in this direction, so we would head that direction, stop, and then we'd hear it farther away again. So we just, it seemed like it probably was not what the case was, but it definitely seemed like something was like drawing us apart. Because the team at the camp heard, what sounded like wood knocking and some pretty wild sounds where they were. So, Sasquatch or not, there was definitely something else out there in the forest with us, which is crazy because earlier in that day, not far from where we actually did our investigation, I saw probably the largest wild wolf that I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Move through. Actually, like, we were driving down this like back rural like mountain dirt road, and it literally came from the side of the road, leaped across. I don't even know where it came from. All I saw was it jumping. All four paws touched pretty much dead center of the road. It leaped again and was across the road and gone. Like, it was a flash. Like, only two of us saw it. And so I mean, and then obviously we have, and then I shouldn't say obviously, in Mogollon Rim area of Arizona, they have one of the largest wild elk herds in the country, which we ended up in the middle of. So that was cool, and then we could hear them before we were having a night investigation, which I think some of the sounds made into the episode where you could hear them bugling in the distance. And that was insane to hear.
I'm sure.
When you're in the dark and you're only lit by a campfire and you just hear these like crazy bugling sounds from the distance. And who knows what we encountered that night, but yeah, there was definitely something that we were audibly hearing both with our ears and with our sound equipment that was moving around out there with us.
That's crazy. Well, the next question we've pretty much covered, and that was kind of like the regional differences between like the cryptids. So we'll go ahead and skip over that one. Jeremy, do you want to?
What goes into making and shooting of Chasing Legends?
Oh boy.
How many camera dudes?
So we have two main camera guys. We have Sammy Vernay, which is my director of photography, and then we have Jack Kwasitsa, who actually was our audio guy in the 3 of the 4 episodes that we put out recently, or I shouldn't say recently, but they're the most recent episodes. But he is now picking up our second camera position, and then JC Yang, who has been in the show since day one, who originally was our sound guy, is now coming back to do sound for us. And then I have myself, obviously, and then my cousin Michaela is kind of just my right-hand co-researcher, investigator person. And she just kind of like helps out wherever. So yeah, there's 5 of us currently. At one point we had 7 crew member in the 4 episodes that we put out recently, which was nice because we had, 2 extra hands that could just kind of jump in and fill in camera-wise if needed, so that we were able to get a lot of extra angles. So we're, as of right now, operating as a 5-person team. So once we kind of settle on an episode subject, it's numerous Zoom meetings and in-person meetings, which I actually next Saturday have our main in-person meeting for the first episode that we're filming coming up in March. And we just sit down, take all of the information that we have, and essentially build the episode we need to shoot these things for sure. If we can get these things, great, but they're not necessary. We need, we're scheduling the interviews for this time, and that leaves this much time in between to travel there and shoot other things. We break everything up by day. So, we actually do like professional, like TV production call sheets that everybody on the team gets. And that actually has like our, okay, we're arriving at our Airbnb this time on this day. We'll have a meeting this night, but no production is happening, so it's pretty lax. And then our main production day or days will have, we need to be out the door by 8-9 a.m. here at this time. Try to eat and try to leave an hour or so window to eat in the middle of the day. If we can't, we try to get something on the go, and then we have like our wrap time and all that stuff. So yeah, the production side of it is probably more of the headache than like the research side of it. I enjoy both. It's just fun to kind of like build these and then like go out on location and then actually like see it come together. But when we first started this, we would just kind of like pick a topic and then just go and shoot it and hope for the best. And then usually it never worked out in our favor. So now we're trying to up our production value and up our content. So, we can't have episodes that we shoot and don't get released. So we make sure that, we have everything laid out that we need to get to put it together. And then that also helps me in the edit, because then I have this whole like blueprint essentially of the episode where I can just, find my clips and lay it all together, and, it just streamlines everything. So yeah, there's quite a bit that goes into the production side of it, and it's all fun.
Sure. Well, so what do you do to kind of involve your audience in your cryptid investigations?
So we, one thing we used to do, and I'm going to get back into it now that we're going to start filming again, is we used to do some like Facebook Live stuff, like on location. Like if we had like some downtime, if we're just shooting B-roll or whatever, I would jump on and just be like, hey, we're out here filming. This is what we're doing, kind of a thing. And then I think we'll do is I'll throw out into the ether, hey, what are some things that you would like us, to see us go after? And, we've always encouraged people to reach out and either with their own sightings or their own recommendations for us for possible episodes. And there's quite a few on the list that I have that have come from our fans.
Very cool.
That I have not, either heard about or have really like considered. And then, I'll have somebody be like, hey, this is, you should look into this. I can point you in the right direction. If you want to, reach out to me, if you decide to do it, I can, help you out, sort of thing. So it's good to kind of have that. But yeah, I love our fan base. I mean, wouldn't be a thing if we didn't have a fan base.
Right.
And,
we're the same. We love our listeners.
Yeah. And I always make that as clear as I possibly can. Like, I love this subject. So like, I'm always open to people reaching out and talking different things. And, if it helps me out with, future episode content and this and that, absolutely. So yeah, we try to involve as much as we can.
Good.
So I think I'm going to skip down a little bit.
Sure.
So the next one I'm going to ask is there a dream location or a dream cryptid that you want to cover soon?
Just too many.
Your favorite one? That's
I mean, our dream is to do this, is to take this entirely globally. Not that there's not enough within the US that we could explore, but there's just not enough for us to look into that I feel is like interesting enough to justify doing a whole show on just US cryptids. But yeah, and in me personally, from a research standpoint, I enjoy researching the international ones because there's just a lot more depth to them in terms of, especially from like a cultural side of, where these things come from. And there's just a lot more, interesting angles you can take an investigation with some of these international ones. Thylacine is definitely on the top of my list. That's probably my favorite non-cryptid cryptid, just because it was a real animal that went extinct in the 1930s and is reported to still be seen up to today. But I mean, that one, and I've got, a handful of, I should back to Thylacine, also known as a Tasmanian tiger, for
It
people
is.
that might not know either variation of the name.
I
was
looked that up when we were talking about that in chat. That thing is crazy looking.
Mm-hmm. Was
The
a
mouth
marsupial?
of it is like
80
the mouth
degrees.
is-
It could
I'm sorry, the mouth was like, it reminded me of that Beetlejuice movie where the ghost, it just it was crazy.
Yeah, it was like a marsupial wolf. So it was a marsupial, so it was in the same family as kangaroos. It had a pouch, and it had live young that were birthed into the pouch and eventually would come out similar to a kangaroo. But they were a carnivore, almost a wolf, and they went extinct in mainland Australia after the introduction of the dingo because it was basically just outcompeted for food. And then they were also up in New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, and it's also believed that they were outcompeted by the dingoes, but I don't think that's entirely possible. But they survived in Tasmania because dingoes weren't introduced there, so they were able to thrive up to the early 1900s, where unfortunately a bounty was put out on them because they were deemed a threat to sheep farmers, which now there's evidence that they weren't, and they were essentially eradicated on the island of Tasmania. The last one dying in the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart, Tasmania in 1936 because it was locked out of its cage outside and it essentially froze to death.
I read that.
Yeah. But yeah, to kind of go back to the Papua New Guinea thing, that's where I and some other thylacine researchers think that they could still be thriving because Papua New Guinea and New Guinea, Western Papua, it's so highly unexplored that there's no definitive way of knowing for sure if they are totally gone. And there's so many stories from inland tribes that speak of the striped dogs that they encounter in the jungles and all this stuff. So yeah, that's definitely one.
They have stripes on their hind end, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where the tiger kind of name came from, is because they just had these crazy stripes. But yeah, I know there's a company called Colossal Biosciences. They're a de-extinction company, as they claim to be, and that's one of the creatures that they plan to essentially bring back to life through genetics is the thylacine, as well as the woolly mammoth. Yeah, I mean, I believe they're still roaming around. I've got quite a few contacts in Tasmania that think the same, and they would obviously know because they're there. But yeah, it's definitely, thylacine's definitely one of those romantic stories that I think a lot of people are obsessed with, just because of the how it went was all by our hands. And,
right. Which is sad.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, I think that's probably on the top of my list. I've got a couple other ones that are would be Dream. Mapangori is one of them, which is a South American, Brazilian, Peruvian kind of cryptid. It got roped into the Bigfoot category, which I think is incorrect. The initial descriptions of it talk about it having backwards feet and a mouth on its abdomen, which I think is where
Oh,
the folklore end of it takes place, or kind of falls in. I believe that, and this is again kind of coming from my biologist stance. I'm not a biologist, but I kind of take more of that stance. I think they possibly could be a surviving population of what's called a megatherium, which was the giant ground sloth that exists back in the Pleistocene Ice Age. Very large. It fits a lot of the descriptions of what people claim for the Mapamagori. And that's kind of where my head goes to. If it could be a flesh and blood animal, that's the only thing that did exist that could fit the description. So when you look at it, and this is again kind of why I love the international stuff, is do you look at it as the sighting? Do you look at the sightings as something that people are still currently seeing, or a lot of these stories that come out of the indigenous tribes of the Amazon, or are they just stories that have been passed down thousands of years by their ancestors that did actually encounter these creatures? So, that's just, again, that's one of those awesome things about international cryptozoology, is there's just so many layers. And then probably my third pick would be the orang pendek, which is another Bigfoot creature out of Sumatra. And it's actually, they're described as being only like 3 to 4 feet tall. And the jungles of Sumatra are incredibly dense, incredibly unexplored. So the possibility of finding a 3 to 4 foot tall, primate creature is, that lends a lot of credibility to the possibility of their existence. And there's a lot of prominent scientists and conservationists that have worked in that region that have pretty much stated that it would be weird for them not to exist, given the sightings and the people that report them. And there was a now discovered past species of hominid known as the Homo florensis that existed. I don't know the specific dates, but that was essentially like a hobbit person, is how they described it, where all the skeletal remains that they have found of that were like 3 to 4 feet tall. And it was within that kind of region where it, if it's not saying that it is a, surviving species of these things, but that's kind of what a lot of people have kind of connected to orang pendek stuff. I think it's probably just if it is something current, it's probably just something that we've not discovered before, because that's just what's more likely to me, given the area that they're seen in.
Right.
But yeah, and seemingly all the ones that I really want to go after are in areas that are very tough to look for things.
Well, I'm gonna change up the next question a little bit, because we've kind of already covered it. So I am going to ask you what your thoughts are on the Fresno Nightcrawler. Do you think it's a cryptid? Do you think it's a hoax?
Is it right up there with the boogeyman?
Have you ever seen the videos on that yet, Jay?
Yeah, I remember when that story first broke and that video first came out. And I remember the Fact or Faked episode about it, and they couldn't debunk it.
Right.
I don't know. It's not one that I've ever really put much time into.
Yeah.
I know people that have. But it's not really a subject that I've really ever been interested into to ask them hey, what do you think of this? It seems like it, for whatever reason, gets roped into cryptozoology, but I don't think that it's if anything, it should fall into ufology or paranormal.
Well, for me, or for anybody who doesn't know what the Fresno Nightcrawler is, just think of a giant tooth walking with no arms.
The video is definitely cool. And from what I understand, like I said, I have not put any sort of research into this, but from what I understand, it's only been that video, and it seemingly has blown up
Is there
Like I
one
said, I
or
could be
two
wrong.
videos?
I haven't put much, don't come after me, please. But
And it
yeah, I
could
feel like
only be
it's.
the
Oh,
there
I
might be
think it was
just the
like
one.
I think it was just that one video, and for some
Yeah.
reason, it's become
I
the
think the
fucking
one
talk of the
other one
town.
I was thinking of was the people that were trying to debunk it. So I think
Yeah, there's
that's
been a
the
lot of that.
video that
Yeah,
yeah.
Fact or Faked. That was a whole episode
Yes,
where they
yes.
went at that and tried various things, and
Yeah, it's
but I
creepy. I mean, basically it looks like, or I guess you could describe it as pants, like a pair of pants walking without any upper body or something. But I don't
think
know
that was
why
one of
it
the
reminds.
experiments that they did too, where they like had like pants on like some sort of like pulley system, like draping, and then they had like a
Right,
toddler walk across the lawn, which that obviously wasn't what we're seeing here. Um,
right.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's
Well, this leads into Jeremy's next question.
Oh, it does.
It really does,
What's my
yeah.
next question?
17.
Oh, 17. How do you approach separating fact from fiction in cryptid lore?
it is a fun time. Yeah, it really all comes down to like the research. Like I said, the list of cryptids that we consider for episodes are like thoroughly looked into. I mean, there's a few on the list that I have that, after like further research, it's pretty much come down to, okay, the sightings are there, but there's nobody to talk to, so we can't do that. And, or we'll look into something and there's either just no information for whatever reason, or whatever reason we find points in a completely different direction than we were even thinking it was going to go. But yeah, from, we interviewed quite a few people in the Mokia Monster episode. We interviewed some people that were on more of the woo side, and I didn't know that until we showed up to interview them in the middle of the woods with no cell phone reception. And so that was kind of interesting, and we just kind of like went with it. And luckily they didn't really like talk about it in the interview section, which we all thought was strange, because they were like, that was like their whole thing. And then we sat down to do the interview with them and they didn't discuss it at all. That's like, what? Like, so I don't know if either they picked up that we didn't believe in that stuff and we didn't want to talk about that, or they just, I don't know, because like the guys we interviewed had YouTube channels of their own and they talked about it freely on their YouTube channels. So I don't know why they didn't, I don't know. But yeah, that was kind of one where we're just like, interesting here. But yeah, we definitely tried to like, sift through as much as we can. Like, okay, we're not going to talk about that. Like, going back to our upcoming Dogman episode, like I'm not going to talk about Bray Road because it's been talked about a billion times. And I will just, the whole episode will just be me ranting about it for, 40 minutes. And so, yeah, there's things that we, have to kind of determine, is this worth us speaking about? Is this us worth looking at? Is this person, worth talking to? They don't have the best credibility in the field. They've, are known to kind of go off on some pretty crazy, topics and this, that, and the other thing. It's not easy by any means to kind of separate fact from fiction, especially in a field of this where there is no, certainty. So yeah, we just do the best we can.
All right. Let's see. The next one is, what advice do you have for someone interested in starting their journey into cryptid investigating?
Go into it with the right mindset. Don't go into it with any sort of preconceived, I know this is what this is supposed to be sort of thing. Like, you do not. You need to approach this with the openest of minds and be willing to discuss these topics and change your mind as new evidence is brought to you, and don't attack those that have different kind of points of views on certain things, because it just doesn't go anywhere. But yeah, I would, align yourself with people you can trust. There's a lot of great people in this field. There's a lot of people, there's people that I grew up, following and reading their work that I'm now friends with. So there's a lot of the old guys are very, very happy and willing to give you their time. And there is a few gatekeepers out here, but more often than not, you're going to find people that are very happy to point you in the right direction and kind of guide you properly, and aren't going to lead you astray by any means. And just start doing it. It's a good time for this topic. It's also a very terrible time for this topic because, we've run into a lot of, now with AI, we're running into a lot of AI images being passed off as evidence. And for whatever reason, people believe it, even though it's very obviously that it's not a real picture. So
I have an example of that.
Yeah, that's
Jeremy
great.
actually wrote a story. He made up a cryptid. And what was it? Bladrak?
Yep.
Okay, so it was for Halloween. He wrote this whole story, made up this fake cryptid. He the characters were actually JT and Lacey, so us. And in the end, I end up getting turned by the cryptid, and then I kill him. So anyway, spoiler alert if you haven't listened to that episode. But I was using the AI generator because I'm like, well, how am I going to find an image for this episode? Because Bladrak doesn't exist. So I used an AI generator and I sent Jeremy this picture. I'm like, well, this one looks pretty cool. He's like, the thing has like 5 legs. It didn't do, there was always something particularly off with it. So I'm like, well, how do I fix that? Because when I try to fix it, it gives me different images and I want that image, but so that was my first time ever playing with an AI generator, and it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true.
Yeah, I know some people within the field that have like put out when they first released it, they released it as a joke, like this is just for fun. And every so often you'll see them get shared by people as evidence of things.
Real me.
And it's so we have, so it's always it's like a running joke between a bunch of us. Like anytime we see it, we send it to the person. We're like, it's back.
It's back. Well, look at if going into like the creepypasta world, look at Slender Man.
Mm-hmm.
He was a image that someone created for a contest and became this huge creepypasta lore. So much so that 2 little girls tried to murder their best friend.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
We run into that a lot in the cryptid field where people put a lot of stake into these things that are very obviously creepypastas, but they, make them into like a cryptid, whatever. And it's tough. But yeah, I think, where was I once? I was somewhere and it got brought up that I did cryptozoology, and this guy was like, oh, cool. And then he started going off on, what do you think of Slender Man and Siren Head and all these things? I'm like, that's
not crypto.
not at all. But yeah, the social media space it's very all over the place when it comes to the cryptid stuff, but find a good group of people. There's a lot of great pages out there. Crash Course Cryptozoology is a great page run by one of my close friends. Association of God, Nate's gonna kill me. Hold on, I gotta look this up. There's a lot of the Association of Cryptozoological Fieldwork and Analysis. It's another great page ran by Nate Brislin. He is a great researcher, very smart guy. Grass Cryptozoology is ran by Carrick Saint Laurent. Close friend of mine, actually helps me a lot on the research side of Chasing Legends. There's Cryptozoology Facts is another one that's really good. But yeah, there's a ton of great pages out there. Instagram's got a bunch of them. And a lot of them are more than happy to allow you to share your own stuff in. Mind you, you're going to get feedback. And sometimes it's, a lot of people, there's a lot of arguments that I see sometimes in these pages because it's not always feedback that these people want to receive.
Right.
So that kind of goes back into, the open-mindedness and be willing to have a conversation. It's cryptozoology, not politics, folks. Doesn't need to be such a hot subject.
Are you familiar with the group Cryptid Warfare?
I am not.
Okay.
Well,
I just heard them telling a story. I think they're out of the Tennessee area.
They might have just followed. That name is familiar. I don't know if they recently followed the Chasing Legends Instagram or liked a post, but that name sounds familiar.
They're involved. I've kind of been, putting your name out there for the group that we talk with, and I haven't personally talked with them, but they are involved with a lot of the podcasts that we do work with. But basically they're former military and police, and they joined this, cryptid group. Then they call themselves Cryptid Warfare, and they also have a podcast.
Oh, cool.
And they were just on another podcast, and they brought out a huge point that I never thought of. It's not only the cryptids that you may be hunting or the animals like the alligators and stuff that are out there. They ran into an issue where they didn't research the area that they were going very well and found out that they landed themselves in a pot growing area where the people in that area did not take kindly to it. And they were like chased down all night and like hiding in ditches. And luckily they had guns and stuff with them, and they didn't have to use them. But it was the story that they were telling. I mean, basically they went out to go on a couple-hour excursion just to check this area out. Ended up being out there for almost 8 hours because they were like hiding in ditches and stuff. And luckily when they went out there, they covered their car with brush and stuff. So the people didn't even see their car because they were afraid that if they had found the car, they would have slashed their tires. So that was a part of it I never thought of. You have to be careful of humans, the worst ones.
I mean, I do, like, before we even like go out on an investigation, like I'm surveying like Google Earth and, kind of pinpointing like the best possible place where we can go where we're not going to run into private property. Just because of that risk, but also, the farther away from people you're going to be is the more likely you're going to, have experiences.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We and kind of on a different note, similar to that. So we talked with the guy in the Pukwudgie episode, John Horgan, and he talked about how he has spoken with paranormal groups that have gone out into the area that we investigated, and you'll have two different groups on opposite ends of this at the same time doing call and response things for like Bigfoot, and they'll be talking to each other, not realizing that they're talking to each other.
So they're thinking they're getting all this great evidence.
So they're like, they'll be howling out and doing wood knocks, and then the opposing team thinks that what they're experiencing is, some Sasquatch activity, so they'll do it back, and then it's just a back and forth of these two groups, unknowing of each other.
That's
I've never
crazy.
ran into that, luckily, but yeah.
That'd be something.
I'd be shouting out, "Wait, are you human over there? Are there actual people?" All right, Jeremy, what's the next question you got for us?
Well, I think we probably took enough time from them, so maybe we should just wrap this
Wrap
up.
it up.
Because, yeah, we're already
Give me one. Give me one more. Give me one more.
One more?
One more. All right. I'm looking here. How about, can you give us a sneak peek on any upcoming cryptid investigations or projects you have in the pipeline?
Yeah. So we have plans for 2 as of now to film this year. First one will be in March. Second one not decided yet. There's a possibility of a third one, but we're not sure yet. And then those episodes will release as kind of like our season 1.5. We're not going to call them season 2. But those are going to be our like new format that we're kind of going with. I mean, I say new, but it's going to look relatively the same. It's just I'm going to like actually narrate the episodes this time around just so we can like put more info in. But it's also going to like help us in the editing because then we can kind of like transition to things easier.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've decided on kind of a shorter episode format. So we're going to go with, I think it's like 20 to 30 is what we're going to try and stick with just so it's not what we ran into with the 4 recent episodes that we put out was that we were trying to go for like a, you know, TV standard hour, which is like 42, 45 minutes. And what we ran into was there was a lot of just like dead space to kind of like make that time. So we're just like going to cut it back just to kind of keep things snappy and more to the point. Obviously, you know, we don't have time constraints. We don't want to like make it shorter than 20 minutes, but if we have enough good footage and content, we'll, you know, we're more than happy to kind of make it longer. Where we're going to try and stick to that 20-30. But yeah, that'll be kind of like a season 1.5 sort of a thing that we're doing just to kind of like get new stuff out there, show people that we're back and doing stuff. And then I believe in the fall, we might attempt to do another Kickstarter and do a proper season 2. But all of that's kind of still up in the air. But yeah, we have a lot. We have things for sure coming, and there's a lot that we're like hopeful to happen. Because with my dream for season 2 was to have a few actually go international and you know, explore some of these bigger topics. Try and do some longer expeditions to give ourselves more potential to have encounters with whatever we're looking for. Yeah, it's going to be a busy year for us with this, and hopefully the next several years are even busier.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, Nash, I have to say it is so fun. I have not I guess I didn't even mention this earlier. I've known Nash since he was little. He is the same age as my son, and he used to come over to our house and play, and I went to high school with his parents. So it's so crazy to see you all grown up and, you know, doing all of this awesome stuff. And I was so glad that our, you know, roads were able to cross with this, with us doing the podcast and being along the same lines of what you're doing and us being able to have you on and ask you all these awesome questions and, you know, hear all your awesome stories. And it's been crazy. You were quite the imaginative little kid when you were growing up too. So it's fun to see that you took it somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I never asked you, how did you even like come across my stuff?
Dylan.
Oh, really?
Dylan told me. Yeah.
Wow.
He was telling me that a couple of years ago, he actually mentioned it. He asked me if I remembered you. And I'm like, of course. And he goes, yeah, he's going out on all these adventures, hunting cryptids. And so he told me about it and I checked out your stuff a while ago. And then when we started the podcast, Dylan and I were talking again. And he's like, you know, you should really see if Nash would want to come on because he's kind of along the same lines. And then he also went to school at Lakeville when in high school, and he went to school with like Dakota and Chelsea
Yeah.
Layton and that group. But he mentioned, he's like, get in touch with Nash, see if he remembers you. I bet you he'd come on and do an interview. I'm like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
then we interviewed Jenny from TCPS Paranormal and Taps last weekend, and she remembered meeting you at, we talked about this on chat, at some cryptid or some kind of
Yeah, Minnesota.
event.
I think it was Minnesota Paracon. I forget the name of it. It's not a thing anymore. But yeah, that was way up in, I think it was like Shooting Star Casino. Like
Yeah, she said that it kind of went away with COVID.
Yeah, that was yeah. It's crazy though.
So
Yeah, like I said, I haven't.
world.
Yeah, like I haven't. I can't even remember the last time I even talked to Dylan. So that's cool. That's great that he.
Well, I think that's
brought
the
that
nice
up
thing
and
with
talked
social
about it.
media. Yeah. I think that's the nice thing with social media. Even though some of us really hate it, it really does keep us in connect with what people are doing. So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, he says hello. So if you make it out to Columbia, I will.
Yeah, there's a couple things in Columbia that I wouldn't mind looking into. So it's good to
there you go. Take him out and scare the crap out of him. It's crazy. He loves it out there. They were living kind of Airbnb to Airbnb out there, and they were going out and living in like Airbnb tree houses. He lived in an Airbnb like mud hut type thing, I mean, they were out in the wilderness and stuff, and I'd be on the phone with them and you could hear monkeys in the background. I'm like, are you safe?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then like their bed, like in one of the tree houses, they had to sleep with a mosquito net over because there's no walls.
Mm-hmm.
So not something I could do, but he loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, well, we'll let you go, and we appreciate your time and all of the great info and stories that you shared. And that was a lot of fun having you on. We'll have to do it again after you get everything kind of up and rolling, and have you come on.
Maybe after season 2's done, you can come on and
give us a recap of everything.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have if we can do some of the episodes that I kind of have in my head for that. We'll probably have some crazier experiences in Louisiana. So, yeah, anytime. I'd love to come on again.
And we'll definitely be watching. So
yeah, we'll be watching you.
And we'll make sure that we share out your information as well for our listeners so they can watch too.
Yeah. ChasingLegendsCrew.com is my website, and that's kind of like the one-stop shop. All of our episodes are there, and then all of our social links are also on there. So you can pretty much get to anywhere that's related to our stuff through our website. Otherwise, Chasing Legends Official is all of our social handles. It's YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Nice. Definitely go check him out, guys. There's a lot of great videos on YouTube. We had a lot of fun watching them. And some of them I rewatched. Well, again, thank you, Nash, and be safe in your adventures, and
I'll try.
Stay in touch. And
thanks a lot, Nash.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.
You too.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of Total Conundrum.
And what an adventure it's been diving into the worlds of cryptids and the downright bizarre with our special guest, Nash.
Seriously, who knows would end up debating whether Bigfoot prefers crunchy or creamy peanut butter.
Wait, what? We didn't discuss that.
Well, maybe we should have. Sounds like a very important topic to discuss.
One thing's for sure, though, with Nash's epic storytelling and our passion for the unexplained, this episode was a roller coaster of laughs and goosebumps.
So, listeners, buckle up and get ready for more mind-bending mysteries and side-splitting shenanigans on the next Total Conundrum.
Until then, remember to keep your eyes peeled for cryptids, your ears tuned in for EVPs, and your peanut butter securely stashed away from prying Sasquatch, aka Jeremy's hands.
Hey, I take offense to that.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We love you. Keep on creeping on.
Bye. Smell you later. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.